I'm very conscious that it's very late in the day. We're already at 7:19. You have been sitting here since morning, and all of you must be very tired. I was supposed, as you all know, I was supposed to speak in the morning, and because of a health episode, I couldn't, and that's my fault because according to Ayurveda, all disease is pragya aprad, so I must have done something wrong to have brought that upon me. But now I'm better, and I told Hungutji that even if it is late, since I have come from such a long distance and so much public money has been spent on me, I will still like to talk to you. I hope what I say will be of some use to you in your work and on this NEP issues also. When Mananiya Raghunandanji of the Vidya Bharati called me to say that I should come here, I immediately agreed, and one of the main reasons was that I thought I'll be going to an institution which was founded by Professor V.R. Panchamukhi and Professor P.R. Panchamukhi. I had the good fortune working with Professor V.R. Panchamukhi when he was the chairman of the ICSSR, and I was one of the members, and found him to be very affectionate and of course a great intellectual who straddles the world of ancient Indian knowledge and the modern economics knowledge gracefully and without any effort. Unfortunately, I have not been able to meet him. I'm told he is not well. Maybe I'll request Hungunji to sometime arrange a visit to Mantralayam. I'm very keen to go and see him, and so that was one reason. But anyway, this is an institution which is envisioned by him, and so it is something where it is good to come to. The other reason I decided to come was that I realized that this Hubli Dharwad is a very special part of India. Actually, every part of India is a very special part of India. That's what India is. But this has its speciality. Geographically, it sits on the transition point, intersection between the Western Ghats and the Deccan Plateau. So it has consequences for its agriculture, it has consequences for its soil types, it has consequences for the type of water, that's kind of water that's available, kind of agriculture you do here. But because of its position at this place with the Maratha on the west and this Bamnis and Deccan people on the east and Mysore Sansthanam below, it has experienced very intensely almost every phase of the great Indian history. It is said that Dharwad came into being as we know it today in the Chalukya period in 12th century. It may have been, something must have been earlier also in the Rashtrakuta times, but for this you have an inscription record that in 1112 there was a king who says that he is here. Not a king, but I don't know, that term is, sometimes Sushmaji we should have a good seminar on the concept of kingship in India. Okay, because this king is a very loose term. I don't think we had kings in the sense one talks about kings. So what I was saying was that he came here, and for that 12th century we have some record. And then after that, I think at some point from the Chalukya period, the Bahmanis took over of this part, and that was a short period, a very short period, because even a much more glorious empire got established in Vijayanagara, which is next door from here. And so this became part of the Vijayanagara empire. And when the Vijayanagara finally collapsed or declined with the Battle of Talikota, I think there was some period that Hindu kings still continued here. But then the Adil Shah of Bijapur, he became the suzerain here. And that may also not have been a very long period, because I think Adil Shah, then Aurangzeb maybe came here. It came under the Mughal Empire for a while. And then when the Mughal Empire was declining, the Marathas took over the place. And when there was a period during the Maratha, there was this Tipu Sultan and Hyder Ali who invaded this area. But then it came back to the Marathas. And the British took it over from the Marathas. So all of the history of India you see happening here, in this place. History happens in local areas. It doesn't happen in books. It doesn't happen in... a place like this is rich for teaching people history. And after that, after the British came, you will all know Kittur Chennamma and Baba Sahib of Rangoon, who gave an extraordinary fight to the British. We keep teaching that the British took over India without much effort, that we were just not there, we were lying supine, and there are this all kinds of things said that some traders came and they without having to fight at all they gave. But the kind of fight that Raja Kittur Chennamma gives to the British in the first expedition, which she wins in 1824, or her armies, and these were not small armies. This will be 500 guns and maybe 20,000 or larger forces. Her army is killed. It's called Saint Thomas. What is the name? Octolan? Who was I just forgot the name. Who was the collector of and political agent of what the British call the southern Maharashtra Doab, which I believe is the Doab of Krishna and Tungabhadra, which will be very large area starting from Raichur to Belgaum and further below. She killed that person, and I think there's an obelisk of that British man. Is a very somebody. He was a British king of this vast area, and many others would have been killed. Many British were held hostage. And during the second expedition, which she lost, she killed the nephew of the mighty Thomas Munro, who was then the governor of Madras. It's not a small thing to do. And knowing all this, we still keep teaching. We have not corrected our history that this was not a supine country that the British took over. This was a country which fought every inch. And much of this information that I'm giving is lay information. It would have come to, because we are celebrating this this Azadi Ka Amrit Utsav some of this information has come, or we have some information from Chennamma from M.M. Kalburgi. But I don't think we have done the kind of historical study that we need to do on the detailed history of every part of India. And one of the things, since Professor Kadam, I wonder if he is here today, he is the Secretary of ICSSR, Member Secretary of ICSSR. As a member of this board, I hope you set up a separate section in the CMDR to study the history of this area. We do all kinds of PhD theses. I was talking to some students. Students want to do something, we offer them subjects which do not add to the story of India. But you could get 20 theses done, or maybe more, on the history of this area, and this history will not be one-dimensional. Our Panchmukhi, he very perspicaciously called this Center for Multidisciplinary Research. So when you do this kind of history, you also look at what is the sociology of how, say for example, the descendants of Rani Chennamma, what is their position in the world today? How do they look upon this history when you talk to them? Are they left, or they were reduced to beggary, as the British wanted to reduce everybody to beggary? Everybody who rebelled, they wanted to, or the descendants of Baba Sahib of Nargund, what happened to them? And this will be good sociology. You could study, you could do a thesis on this, that obelisk which has been made for that British collector, must have been during the British times itself, in the Rani Kittur Chennamma Park of Dharwad. One could do a good psychological study that when people see this and they know the story, what kind of impact it has on their psyche. How do they react? So there's a whole social science, as the people who set up the CMDR know. Social science is not a single discipline. The phenomena of society have to be understood from various dimensions, and let us try to understand with various dimensions the phenomena which are significant to the India story. We are doing various kinds, won't mention what kind of work we keep doing, but that's really trivial work. The students will be, when they can do something more significant, they'll be feeling much more proud. And one issue that keeps coming to my mind, when you read about this Chennamma, the account says that she was arrested in, I think, 1826, and then she died in incarceration. But people don't die like this. What would have been done to make her die that young? And it's the similar story of Birsa Munda, that was arrested and he died, as if it was some natural cause. That's how we write this history. But I'm sure there will be British who, if they were good at one thing, they were creating archives. And they would have had discussions, formal written down discussions, as to what should be done to these rebels, what they call. They are not rebels, we keep calling them rebels. They are Swatantrata Senani, and because the British call them rebels, we call them rebels. They were fighting for their land. I think this is Dharwad, but I think every part of India has the same kind of rich history. That's what India is all about. You touch any stone of India, it has a story to tell. And those stories, if we write, that will make our, we are talking so about NEP. How do you improve your teaching, improve your books, till you do not have this kind of detailed information? So that is one thing I wanted to say, that we need to do this, and there is much to do in every part of India. The CMDR is very fortunate. We have Ashok Kadam, we have Sushma Yadav, who is a fine political scientist, and I'm sure there will be others. I think we can make something out of it. And one good thing is that in India of today, there's not a scarcity of funds for doing good research. There's not scarcity of funds for doing bad research also, unfortunately.
More for bad research.
But we should do good research, and it's not possible, it's not impossible to do good research. Only we have to change our attitude. That a PhD thesis is not for the sake of PhD thesis. It's a PhD thesis for the sake of learning something about your society, about the social phenomena that are before you. It's not just, and if you do that, if you do your PhD thesis in that manner, you will have a whole series of social science career opening before you. You will be clear कि आगे क्या करना है, उसके आगे क्या करना है. But if you do trivial research, then there is, every time you will find, okay, what other triviality I can do, which is, okay, I don't know whether I should have been saying all this, but I'm very keen. I've been going everywhere and saying that there is very significant social science research we can do, and I don't know whether there are people who know much more about NEP, but I don't think NEP, the spirit of it, can be implemented unless we start doing this kind of research. We have somehow reduced NEP to IKS, which is correct. But if Indian knowledge from आपको जल्दी है, मुझे जल्दी नहीं है. Indian knowledge, Indian way of acquiring knowledge has two ends. It is one end is the Shastra, the other end is Loka. And you cannot do Shastra without knowing the Loka. There's no way. So this empirical research of this kind is extremely important. And CMDR, I have read that on their website they have put their objective. I think roughly it says, I believe it must have been written by V.R. Panchmukhi, that social theories have to be tested on the ground of empirical data, and when you do that testing, you will know the theory you are starting with is an alien theory. Instead of starting from the other way, that you start by saying that the theory is alien and creating a ruckus, it's much better to start from the other end, start testing the theory on the, so once you start doing this kind of history, you will know that our theorization of Indian history has been all wrong. But you don't have to start from that end. And starting from that end will not help unless you can show that it is wrong in this particular manner. This is what I want to say, but since this is a conference on NEP, let me raise two issues about national education policy, or to which we should be giving thought. Actually, what I said is also much to do with national education policy. Two issues. And one of them, those of you, and I'm sure many of you, must have read the NEP document. It has a big chapter on foundational literacy and numeracy. and says an urgent and necessary prerequisite for learning. And then it says that this is very unfortunate, it's a long chapter, that with all our efforts, our students, when they come out of school, they have not acquired foundational literacy and numeracy. A very large number of them have not acquired. And the NEP makes a commitment, it makes a sankalpa, that we will correct this in 2025, which is not very far. It is 2 years from now. And they have given various ways of doing it. And I hope those who are working with the NEP and its implementation are looking at this seriously, because this is a crisis. Well, I tend to go and meet people in the shops, and they come out, they have completed it, they can't read one sentence, and they cannot calculate ordinary business of world. And while you are thinking about that, how to correct it, I have a thought to give you. In Dharampalji's book, about which Chaitra has talked a lot and knows, amongst other things, amongst the details of what was the education system, how many elementary schools, if he's calling them schools, and institutions of higher learning, who were the students and how inclusive that was, all that is writing. But in a part of that his book, which has been paid sufficient attention to, is the pedagogy of early schooling that he is talking about. Not he, but the observers of that kind, that time are talking about. And many of them are talking about it, but two of them write it in very great detail as to how the students were taught numeracy and literacy. One of those is from our neighborhood, the collector of Bellary. At that time it was A.D. Campbell, who writes in great detail what are the materials they use, what do they do every day from morning to evening. And the other is Adam Smith from Bengal. And both of them are saying that through this process of teaching, they were able to ensure that the students, in a matter of 3 to 5 years, became functioning members of their native society and were be able to conduct the business of their native society efficiently. And this included writing letters, this included keeping accounts, and this included writing petitions also at that time. All this they were able to do in a matter of 3 to 5 years, in a very simple, almost economic, there was hardly any material used except for some leaf from somewhere and some stone from somewhere and things like that. Now there's a reason for why this was happening. And both Adam Smith and Bellary, they are saying that you cannot see this happening in Switzerland, or in that students in 3 years will pick up functional literacy, numeracy happening. We don't see it anywhere else happening. And I can tell you what is the reason. And I think those who are engaged with the NEP should take it seriously. I may be wrong, but Indian languages are very different, and we all know this, very different than the Western languages or European languages. And the main difference is that Indian scripts are phonetic. That there's an essential relationship between the form of the letter and the sound of the letter. The phoneme and orthoneme, I don't know whether that's how you put it, orthograph, they are essentially related. This is not so in the West, and for them teaching numeracy is very difficult. Okay, they're saying I should close. I'm not in a mood to close. Okay. Okay, but I'll close in another 5 minutes because. So what was being done in the school was, and I think this is how I learned in the 1960s when I was in the school. You had a drill where you wrote the letter and you spoke the letter. And this continued ad infinitum. You wrote the letter, you spoke the, sometimes you did it on a party. But the result of that drill was that the form of the letter and the sound of the letter were hard etched into your brain. And actually even today's educationists know that literacy is basically when the words start speaking to you. But there it was very simple to make the words speak. Same with the numeracy, because you were saying that Western mathematics is very theoretical. Indian mathematics was operational. So you taught them numbers and you taught them the operation of numbers, and you kept repeating that. You stand in 2 rows and keep repeating the what are called the multiplication tables, the counting, the division, the multiplication, and mostly you did it without picking up a notebook. And so all this connection between the number and its operations was also equally well etched in your brain. I don't know why don't we want to do it today. This is such a simple thing. And why did I learned it that way in Punjab. For first 3-4 years we were doing this. That was 1960s. But at some point we decided that we need pencil and pen, and we want to break this connection between the phoneme and the orthograph. And we have served our students very badly by doing that. And whoever are concerned with NEP should think seriously about that. I should close, but I miss if I don't say a few words, because this is, you are talking about higher education. And maybe I have nothing more to say, except for repeating that what the NEP talks about higher education is, यहाँ कहीं लिखा है, the complete transformation of knowledge. That in the end of, not 35 perhaps, but the end of Amrit Kala, that our education will be anchored in our knowledge systems from beginning to the end. It will be a different kind of. And to do that, it is not enough to just add a 3-credit course somewhere. That will not be enough. You have to do something much more serious as the people who have drafted the NEP have in mind. If you give me 1 minute, I'll give one example and then close, because I have no end of talking. And one of the things this chapter on Indian knowledge system, the NEP talks about, it says that Indian people use integrative medicine. They use Ayurveda, they use this, they use that, but our teaching is not integrative. And we have to make it integrative. That's what NEP says. Now, making it integrative is not going to be just by talking about some concepts of Ayurveda to the, you have to, the GAMS students today have to spend, out of those 4 years, they have to spend perhaps 2 years learning the modern system of medicine. These MBBS students, we should make them spend at least 1 year learning the Ayurvedic system. And learning the Ayurvedic system of medicine is very simple, because the text like Ashtanga Hridayam is a very brief text, very recitable, and most good doctors, good Vaidyas learn it by heart, make this MBBS people also learn that by heart in 1 year. Then you will be able to see, then they'll know what Ayurveda is. And then they'll see how to improve Ayurveda, how to improve their knowledge through Ayurveda, and vice versa. Let me close at this. Thank you very much for listening to me this late in the day. I hope I could have talked to you in the morning. Namaskar.